You got to be real to yourself, because oftentimes we're not even allowing ourselves to show us. This is who I really am. This is how I truly feel. And you get to that, I'm telling you.
I think you gotta have a dream.
The School of Greatness.
Really? Yeah.
Please welcome Lewis Howes.
What was the top two rise from the ashes moments for you?
Oh, wow.
That really took you into a soul-searching place where you felt like, man, this is like cancel culture before cancel culture, or this thing that I went after bombed, or I spent all this money on this thing and it didn't work out, that you then realized this was one of the most defining moments for you that made you who you are?
Well, the first thing that I had to acknowledge was I wasn't alone in this moment of feeling capsized, right? It really was universal. Sometimes it's real easy to start to feel like you've painted yourself into a corner, or I've always had a little bit of fear of abandonment issues since I was a kid, so it's real easy to get like lost and feel like, man, there's no real rhyme or reason for how I proceed forward. So the first thing is acknowledgement, right? And being able to look around, being grateful for the people, places, and things that you have learned to love and contemplate with and collaborate with. But then really, it was almost like, okay, everything's different. We're going to come out of this era one way or another with new information. It's also a bit of a reset. I always try to find that like things aren't falling apart, they're falling together. Yeah. For me, I was like, what do I dispel? What do I delete? And what can I come out of this moment like really honed in on, things that are important to me? And
were there a couple big moments in your life before the last couple of years that were like, that broke you down?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The first 10 years of a career is like you sign up for one long breakdown.
Really?
Yeah, because I jokingly say in my routine, when you sign up for stand-up comedy, there's no dental plan. There's no plan. There's no any coverage whatsoever. You're constantly rolling the dice in living with hope, dream, pipe dream, maybes, I hope so's. You're oftentimes driving to gigs. This was my experience going to work. Imagine this. You're driving to gigs, hours and hours, little to no money, realizing I'm going to a place where nobody gives a shit that I'm coming, and they don't give a shit when I'm leaving either. And that's the life until you can figure out the persona, the character, your reasoning for wanting to, see things through. So yeah, early years, constant like undertow. But give you thick skin, prepares you for a moment of success, and then it prepares you for some of the, spanking machine moments that we all get.
Really?
To. Yeah.
What was the hardest part of your career, early days, the first 10 years?
Only getting paid in like French fries and burgers. I didn't start trying to stay in better shape. Because you're on the road, you live on the road.
And you were living in LA at the time, right?
No, I was still
in Boston area?
Started out of Arlington, right outside of Boston, and it was really like New England gigs, college gigs, late night New York City gigs, and like my era switched to like kind of early success, like just about 2000, but that first 90 to 98 was languishing and having a great time with friends and cohorts. I came up with guys like Bill Burr. I came up with Gary Goldman. I came up with Patrice O'Neill. A lot of laughs, but a lot of fear and uncertainty, And so, that first, kind of life lesson, it was something my dad actually said to me early in my career. He said, I was like, how do I do this? How do I build this out? I'm really trying to think. It's just like, it's more than just joke to joke or story to story. And he was like, remember something, nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. And we would see like people in Faneuil Hall where you would go and like shop, and there'd be a group of people performing, and they would like hype each other up, and then more people would come because what's about to happen. Well, the key was when something does happen, how do you keep people there? How do you keep them attracted to what you're putting out there? So all those things combined in the first 10 years was like, try to find my little crowd first, worry about entertaining them. Maybe it'll attract the larger crowd, in time. But be better so that if that big crowd comes,
they stay.
I'm not like, he was okay for the first few minutes. So it's like the tough years in this industry, it builds your character and it prepares you for a yes moment to go, by the way, I have a few other things that I'd like to share with you.
Yeah. And do you think if you didn't have those 8 years of French fries and beer as your
No beer.
Just French fries?
Never had a drink in my life.
Really?
I'm 50. I've never had a drink or a drug in my entire life.
You know what's interesting? There's another thing in common. I've never been drunk or high in my life.
Are you serious?
No joke. Never been drunk or high in my life.
That's great.
And playing college football, I went against the grain, right? And probably being a comedian, you are out late and people are in the green room behind the scenes. It's like...
Yeah, everybody's imbibing, and all I'm thinking about, well, for a couple of reasons. I'm thinking about work. I'm thinking about building a platform, because people came to see me. They like me. They're dispersing. How do I hold on to them? So it was a lot of that after the show. But it was also like, even though I like to chase girls and I was hanging out and having good times, the reality was I wanted to wake up early and I wanted to figure out a way to fill in the other 22 hours of the day with more than just sleeping and hemming and hawing. I was like, how can I be proactive in this career?
That's powerful. You needed the edge.
I need the edge. I needed a destination.
Yes.
You know, you could have short-term goals, but you have to have the long-term.
Right.
And I also, lucky for me, I had a dad who... just had like this, he was just old school, and he kept that competitive, he was an athlete, and he kept that competitive edge in me. Even though I was in the arts, I still wanted to put wins in the win column and show him, because he was like, oh, you're going into the arts, and I'm the athlete, and you're my only son, and you're, dilly-dallying and, whatever, plays and makeup.
Comedy.
Right? He didn't quite understand that I could set goals and have my own versions of a Super Bowl or a World Series. It was just going to be different, and yet the mechanics are exactly the same.
Sure. I mean, you're selling out Madison Square Garden, one of the first comedians to do that, right? What year was that?
Oh man, that was that was definitely after the 90s stuff. That was like 2004, 5, 6 was doing an arena run.
But that's kind of a Super Bowl. That's like a big win category, right?
Yes.
I mean, especially at that time, that was much harder and unheard of for a comedian.
It was
who's schlepping DVDs 10 years prior. You know what I mean? Like
I was schlepping
in the
DVDs.
back of just like, hey, please buy my DVD or CD or whatever it is. It's hard. My brother is a jazz violinist, and so I grew up watching him in clubs like, will you buy my CD? Will you buy, like playing for 14 people in a dive bar.
Yeah.
Building a community kind of in a similar arts, if you will, maybe not as big, but
those moments matter
absolutely
equally to the people coming through the turnstile and walking into Madison Square Garden. Because when I'm looking out, my perspective, away from an event moment, is all of these individuals have trusted that their hard-earned dollar, I'm going to come through and deliver in some way. And I never let myself forget that. Even 31 years in, I still look out. Doesn't matter how big or small the crowd is. I go, these people came here, they're rooting for me, they want to win, and they want to feel good when they leave here tonight.
Yeah. So how did you keep the confidence, in those 8 years to keep going until you started making money? Because there wasn't a lot of big wins. I mean, okay, 13 people showed up. I get it's a small win, but if you go 8 years and there's little wins here and there, but there wasn't massive wins, it sounds like. How did you keep the confidence that I am funny or entertaining or I have skill or value to provide, and I can also survive as a human being?
I had to, the surviving as the human being stuff that came with some great therapy a little bit later down the line. But I was always interested in self-help stuff.
Really?
During those days when you're filling time, find a local library bookstore. And that's the aisle. I'd always lean against, the shelf or sit on the floor and try to find an early version of the Four Agreements or whatever I could find that really spoke to me. I was desperately looking for symbolism or leadership my dad didn't understand. He wasn't in the arts, but he understood competing. And I didn't have really anybody around me except for a couple of great comedian mentors in Boston. But even they didn't quite know that I had my sights on setting myself apart from an entire generation of comedians. I was coming up with a generation of comedy fans. I was the first comedian a lot of them were seeing in those early college years, club years. And I was like, I'm not doing this for halfway. I want to be one of the best of my generation. And the only way I'm ever going to do that is to dig deep, get to know myself. I had a lot of frailty. I had a lot of, a lot. I have a lot of anxiety.
Still?
Oh, to this day, yeah.
But you're one of the biggest. You've accomplished so much in the space. You continue to innovate. You know, you're looked up at as a giant in this industry. You sell out arenas.
Yeah.
You innovate before people are doing these things. Why does that still happen today?
Well, that's the guy who can, through the mechanics, through the prep, through the 10,000 hours, finally can take a stage. And also, I'm a pressure performer. I love it. I'm better when things are starting to like, the set's
chaotic.
falling apart, and suddenly you and I are like creating something that really feels even more real and not and less formulaic and more like it's happening right now. So pressure performer, that's good for me. But everything that leads up to getting to the stage, a lot of social anxiety, a lot of I'm an introvert by nature. You know, grew up as a kid very self-loathing. It took a lot of years to become more offstage who I could, you know, try to become in those early years on. Didn't always do it, you know, had a lot of bad sets.
Because on stage, you come across confident and you know,
the guy I
connected
wanted
the
to be.
audience. Really?
The guy I wanted to be.
The character you wanted to be in real life.
Truly, yeah. And it took about 12, 13 years before I could identify that is me. I'm putting hurdles and obstacles in front of myself in life for reasons that I need to understand. The trauma I experienced as a kid, something is causing me to feel like I need an obstruction. But when I'm on stage, I feel like it's just as far as I want to get to that horizon line. So I had to become more like the guy that already had the edge on stage. And all that version of myself was telling me was, this is you. Take this into everything that you do in life. Be assertive, have the timing, and have a blast. Bring humor to everybody and anything you can, because it's going to alleviate and levitate people around you.
What were you like off stage?
Early on, had my little, you know, the squad, we had our guys, a lot of fun. But away from that, it was really difficult for me to even meet fans in person, because I would get like my breathing would, you know, I'd get like my throat would get tight. Yeah. I was very judgmental on myself.
People that adored you and loved you or inspired by you?
Didn't feel that way at the time. I felt like maybe they just liked a joke, or like I'm pretty good at finding avenues to go like, you know, or maybe they only, and I could kind of down talk myself, which I was a professional at. I was good at that from elementary school on up.
Wow.
You know, telling myself.
Which has some benefits on stage.
Yes.
With the downplaying, the self-deprecating
the self-deprecating,
humor.
taking the piss out of yourself, being able to be, you know, the Eminem 8 Mile, like I'll say it before you can hurt me with it. So yeah, totally, man, you're right on. It's just all that ends up kind of in the guts of the performance. But
when you downgrade yourself in life consistently every day, whether it be in your own mind or to friends, family, and fans, what happens?
Everything gets minimalized. The path gets minimalized. Your opportunities get minimalized. Even your dreams, you start, what is that like, haggling with yourself. Well, maybe if I only do this, you know, I don't need all of that. I can, and you start to shrink the world around you.
Interesting.
And I think that to answer the very beginning of your question, the other element is, I think it's not just about finding a philosophy that you adopt and subscribe to. I think it's understanding your philosophy and in your DNA. What do you truly believe? How can you learn to speak on it, stand by it, accentuate it, and be able to communicate and listen and understand that everybody is different? And maybe that will be an asset to the differentness that we have. So personal philosophy, not just the book that you read that, like I was doing, saying, these are great ideas, but finding your voice in all of that.
I'm going to ask you a question here. When was Madison Square Garden selling out arenas?
Yeah, that was like 04, 5, 6 was the start of that wild era.
Those years you're around the world selling out 20,000 plus people in an arena.
Yeah. Always one guy heckling from like Z section in the back, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to handle this one with this. Man. Describe yourself, and then I'm going to say funny things about you interrupting the show.
That's funny.
But always an event, always fun.
Yeah. I'm curious, before that moment, let's call it 15 years before that moment, when you were in the trenches.
Right, open mics.
Yes. On a scale of 1 to 10, let's call it the self-love scale. 10 being you fully accepted and loved yourself. 0 being you never loved yourself, constantly downgrading internally, externally to everyone. Where were you before 2004, 5, 6 on that scale?
Yeah. 1990, first time I did an open mic at Catch Rising Star in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I would have valued myself. I felt very insignificant. I was like a 2.
Okay. On the self-love scale.
Just self-love. Yeah. I definitely wouldn't not be on a scale of anything looks or anything wise. I was a kid. I came out of cystic acne. I had my head down most of the time, or a hoodie. I did not like myself. I didn't want to see a mirror, so no value there. But as far as just like, could I have a good chat with you somewhere and like maybe just, talk about the Red Sox? Yeah. The day I stepped on stage, I left the club that night and I got emotional immediately. I remember walking through Cambridge and I'm like weeping. And I, at a payphone, called my mom and I said, this is the start. I did it. I did it. And she, how did it happen? And I told her the whole wild story of how I got on stage. And then I would probably have upgraded myself instantly. Like, I'm like 5. Just because I did it once and I got laughs and I proved to myself when the mic was in my hand, I'm okay. I'm okay. So yeah, 2 to a 5 in 1990.
Okay. Then 2005 or 2004 at Madison Square Garden, how did you feel after that moment on the scale? Was it greater? Was it less than?
I would have thought I was like at 8 or 9 level. I would have thought that just given the entrepreneurial ideas that I had in place, feeling multi-hyphenated, feeling like I'm a person that you want on your team. If you want to have a winning team, you should look at me and go, this is one of the people who brings a lot of great ideas. What I did not know was when things started to go down a road of hardship. My parents got cancer within the same year. I went through a terrible theft with my brother business manager. And there was about a 3 or 4 year run at the end of an 8-year high that I would have said, I'm an 8 or 9 level. And then I realized that was a bit of a facade, and I was kind of even lying to myself. I identify myself all through success in business with that number. And I had gotten away from the young version of myself that was so scared and had pain. And I did not realize he was still closer than ever.
Wow.
And when the business is, done, you clock out, or maybe you're starting over, it's a new machine I had a lot of work to do.
With the younger version of yourself inside of you.
Oh, totally not, oh wow, I distanced myself from that because I had success or I proved it. No, there was a lot of things that were, again, just the mechanics and putting all the time, effort, and energy, but I really didn't at that time start the work that I was going to do next.
Wow. So, you went through these.
And that's with professional people and being able to really go like,
what's going on inside?
Yeah, like when nobody sees me on stage and it's not about even like talking with fans and I love it. That is my identity. I enjoy that whole camaraderie and relationship, but like quiet moments, moments of silencia. Who am I?
Who did you feel like you were at that time when you were at the height, but by yourself? Who did you feel like you were still?
I felt like I was a kid that just wanted to be a part of things. And I built this thing all alone. That was very lonely, even though there's 20,000 people around me. Because everybody goes home and the show's over, and then I still felt like I didn't have a real genuine love in my life. And again, I'm not gonna it's like I was a bit of a cad, I'm young, I'm successful, I was having fun.
Of course.
So I wasn't looking to get so serious, but I also knew at the core of me, like, I'm a pretty simple person. And I want that
intimacy and connection.
Intimacy. Yeah. As my mom used to say, you want a teammate in your life. You want somebody you really feel like a team. You're boosting them, they care about you, and then together you've got something that's like your, mutual mission.
Right.
And I didn't have that. And so when my parents were sick, I was like, man, I don't really have a lot of people around me that are here to console. I had a lot of people that wanted to be a part of my business, or maybe they're happy or take a little cash or be on the ride. But then it was like, I didn't know boundaries.
So you said yes to everyone. And
yeah, a lot of yes. Of course. I felt like I'm popular and people like me, and that's what success is. They automatically, we know you now, you're great. And it was like, okay, I have to really dig in and put all these things that I've learned about myself, life around me, and I have to put myself in check and figure out exactly what is my meaning here and how can I receive that love that I want to also give to a human being.
Interesting. So on that scale, 1 to 10, where do you think you were once you found out all these things with family challenges and parents and brother?
Oh yeah, like the real number. It was not an 8 or 9.
What was it at?
Yeah, no, I was really dipping back down to that 5 or 6.
Wow.
Somebody who was like my people love me because of something that I'm bringing.
The success you're bringing
Success,
to the table, the fame,
or maybe
the notoriety.
it was even just like, yeah, I'm bringing some entertainment, but I can't say across the board it wasn't all fans. I had a really beautiful early connection with fans that I think understood that, unlike most comics, I was available through MySpace or early.
You were big on MySpace back in the day.
Yeah, and I was having conversations and learning about people and my fans, and on both a business front to go like, all right, I'm growing with them. This audience is changing. I'm changing. I'm evolving. My act is evolving. So I was all good for like the data and analytics, but I think that my fans also could see that I was like really desperate to share other sides of myself away from just
personal sides. Yeah,
the funny stuff. Yeah.
There's something that just came up for me. I remember listening to one of your CDs back in the day. I think it was a CD, or maybe it was iTunes back in the day.
It was a cassette.
Right, cassette maybe. But it was really funny because I remember the joke. And there's rarely where I remember comedians' jokes, right?
Yeah.
But I remember the joke, and I remember it was funny because it was related to what was happening in that exact moment. And I don't know if you remember it or not, the joke, but it was about something like being in a parking garage. And the screeching sound, you did this hilarious reenactment of like what your car does when you're turning the corners in a parking garage.
I was in Houston at the Galleria Mall, and I wrote that 2 days before I recorded it for that album that you're talking about.
Really?
Yeah. I just happened to drive through in a rental car through the
It sounds
mall
like,
in
I
Houston.
can't remember what you were, exactly, yeah,
Like even
man.
if you're going 2 miles an hour, and I was
just
like, I
screeching.
should put that in my show. I think that's funny.
That was the most memorable thing I remember because I was in a parking garage.
That's right.
And the sound was making it as I was listening to it. So I was like, oh, this is great timing.
Yeah, that's kind of humor.
Yeah,
something that like they laugh in the moment, but later maybe it happens, and they're like, oh,
You remember this thing, yeah.
yeah.
So you were still around the 5 or 6 on the scale.
Yeah.
But everyone out on the outside looking in would probably say, you've got it all figured out.
Sure.
You're at the height.
Yeah.
I think you were the second comedian ever to like sell out Madison Square Garden or something in the stats say online. But you were everywhere.
I was lights out.
You were in the movies, TV shows, selling out arenas. I mean, it was like you were the guy. Right. And you were paving the way, innovating, doing these specials on your own, before the new wave of comedians are doing it now in the last like 3 to 5 years. You were doing this 10, 15 years ago.
It wasn't an era where it was really in vogue to communicate with fans like that.
Exactly. And so you really innovated and paved the way for a lot of people, which has been inspiring. What was the thing when you started to get, to take a look inside, and you were mentioning, working with professionals, I'm assuming maybe therapists or someone else, and I've done a lot of healing work on my own. What was the thing that opened up for you originally that you felt like was missing, that was keeping you from being not being a perfect 10, but from the 8, 9 range of loving yourself, accepting yourself? What do you feel like was missing either from earlier childhood or what you were missing in that time?
The ability to be confrontational, whether that means seeking somebody out and telling them, I'm proud of you, and putting ego or whatever aside to congratulate you and find you to do that. But also being able to go to somebody and say, do you have something you want to say to me? And let's, this is the moment. Being assertive. Assertive was a word that I wanted to implement absolutely in my life. Somebody just was talking about me on a podcast the other day, and somebody else sent a clip. I won't say the name. This guy, Dane used to come in the club, and it was like around 04. And he'd always pull his hat down. He just wasn't a very approachable, almost like I was big timing people. But the truth was, I was probably having massive anxiety at that time. And sometimes I'd go into the club, and if I didn't put my hat down and kind of just, I'm feeling it now, thinking of it.
Really?
Oh, yeah, it's right there, man. It's right. I'm a visual comedian. I'm a visual storyteller, and I feel it when I'm telling it. That's why I'm, exuberant or whatever. So when I tell you, like, I heard this person referring to, oh, man, it was like, I almost wanted to reach out to this person and say, man, if you only understood, like, how there was no playbook for success and nobody knew how to walk me through it. And then there was certainly nobody there to help me to cultivate a team around me of people that maybe were there to protect me more than just benefit.
Sure.
So I was very confused. I was confused. The shows were the greatest. The fans were the greatest. But I was kind of spiraling in my personal life.
Where do you feel like anxiety was coming from? And have you learned how to overcome managing the anxiety and stress at this stage now?
Sure. Yeah. There's like the things that, are probably in good, bad comedies where it's like, gotta put my feet on the floor. And then, you rub it's 17 minutes.
Sure,
if I can just tongue on the roof of the mouth and inhale through the nose and think about the ocean. And like, there's a bunch of different things that I know to do to tell myself I'm going to be okay. It's copacetic.
But that's kind of more surface level, like training, right? Yeah.
Yeah. To not get to that point where it's like, really, how do you prevent even, well, that's a healthy environment. And what does that mean? That means what you eat. That means how your discipline is. That means, this is the hardest part, that you're the judge and jury that knows how to look in the mirror and call yourself on.
Ooh.
To be able to really call yourself in.
Where were you living in the most of your life at that time?
I think that I was.
Mirror,
I was pretending after my parents passed. They passed away from cancer like quickly. They both had it within the same. They both got it, and then my dad didn't tell me because he was real old school about illness. And when she passed, a week later, my dad was like, "I have cancer," and then he was gone several months later.
Oh my gosh.
9 months.
Oh my gosh.
And I was on top. I was on top of the world professionally. I was still in the midst of that like 8-year run where it was like never one spike, almost kind of just like a trajectory. But I didn't want people to see me sad.
Wow.
I didn't want anybody to see me, probably for two reasons. I didn't want to make people feel bad for me, but I also think there was a part of me that was like, man, I earned all this acclaim, and I don't want like my peers and the people that I know are rooting against me, that they were nipping at your heels. I kind of was like,
to have something in hold.
I'm not going to show them that
man.
I'm weak, because I was so weak.
Wow.
And so the facade and not getting right with myself to be able to say to you, I'm having a very bad day today.
Wow.
I'm feeling a little out of sorts. And like how you respond to it, I don't know. Relinquishing your power is something that once I understood that and made it a part of my daily affirmations, which I do every morning, a lot better.
Like having vulnerability to express your full range of emotions.
Totally. Every day, reminding myself, sometimes in a funny way, sometimes even to me.
Sure.
It's like I say my prayers at night. Sometimes it's humorous. Sometimes it's, there's more desperation, there's fear, there's loss, anxiety. You're going to be real to yourself, because oftentimes we're not even allowing ourselves to show us. Mm-hmm. This is who I really am. This is how I truly feel. And you get to that, I'm telling you, it's like, I don't want to say it's like a magical, it's feeling present in a way that you've never, ever experienced.
And feeling peace.
A lot of peace, even in turmoil.
I think
even in scary moments, you're
absolutely.
Like, I'm kind of zen. I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the outcome of this.
It's knowing you can face the adversity and the challenge and the messy emotions.
Yeah.
And know
and
that
if you're with me
okay.
in a funny way, hopefully, I try to make it for the people around me. Like, I'm going to say the thing that I hope cracks it open to where like, this sucks, but there's humor in everything. And if you can start there, then, you're going to be okay.
I don't know what this is about me. Whenever someone says something really sad or horrible, like happens, I somehow like just kind of nervous laugh. It's like, man, right. My whole family just died. That's really, right. It's like something where it's like I'm crying emotional, but I also laugh. I don't know if that's something
Maybe
I need to work on.
it's because you're thinking of like the you're
tension.
thinking for everybody.
I know.
And how do they feel? And is this he looks older. He's probably closer to death. It's like you're thinking of mortality. Where, you have to let all that go and understand that what we really love and value about each other is truth. Even if it's a truth we don't agree with.
Right.
Even if it's the most different, the truth is where I think something's in the ether and it bonds us beyond opinion.
Okay, I have two questions for you about this.
I love that you're always a two-question guy. It's never one or three.
Okay.
I see what you're doing here, man. Okay, the numerology here is fantastic.
I know, we're in LA. We're in LA. We did astrology. We got the numerology with our dates of our birthdays. Your parents, they both passed within 9 months.
Here's the best part of this interview. Wait a second, before we go to my parents, and I know this is the best part. There's nothing on this page. You've got like one hieroglyphic.
One word, yes.
This is amazing.
Yes.
You keep referring, and I'm like, is it invisible ink? Or where is this coming from? You're amazing. You're like a phenom.
Well, when you do over 1,000 interviews, hopefully you start to like be president.
But do you wake up and you open it up, you're like, questions for Dane, and then you just kind of fog out for a second? And
no, I mean, this thing is full of notes from like everyone I've had on. You see, I have like tons of notes that
My page is blank.
Well, I'm so present, man. I'm so present. I've got to be more present with you. But usually people list like educational stuff. This is a different type of interview.
I know. But I like that we're just we're yapping and
Absolutely,
and I interrupted, so I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I interrupt a lot. I interrupt too much. It's one of the things I have to look in the mirror and say, hey, just listen more. Your parents, I mean, my father just passed this year.
I'm sorry.
Right? Thank you. And it was a 17-year journey of him passing. He had a traumatic brain injury in a car accident 17 years ago, which left him physically here, but emotionally, mentally not here.
I understand.
You could have a conversation, but every time I'd see him, he'd say, hey, didn't you play football? Where did you go to school again? It was kind of like his memory wasn't there, his personality wasn't all there.
Right.
So it was extremely challenging. 17 years, it was almost like he was here, but I couldn't fully grieve his emotional death.
I understand. I do.
And so him passing this year in February allowed me to kind of allow myself to heal and grieve fully, right? Still extremely emotional and sad. The whole thing was sad.
Right.
But allowed me to have a little bit more peace and connect to him in a different way that I wasn't able to spiritually, right? But both parents passing in 1 year, I can't even imagine what that's like. Especially at the height, looking for mentorship and support and parenting, all these different things that you were probably wanting.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't even imagine.
They were the voices of absolute truth, when I would go to them. They may not have understood everything in my occupation.
But they were home and they allowed you to come back.
Pure love from two different vantage points. My dad, old school, very just a lot of kind of like that mentality of life is wins and losses. But then there was my mom who's just so loving and compassionate, and it was all about love and beauty. And so it was a nice, companionship to have with my parents up until they passed away, which was so confusing.
And how old were you then?
I was 29.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still very young in your development. I feel like the last 3 years is when I really learned how to become a human, right?
Oh yeah. I was just getting smart in my eyes. So like really understanding more than what I thought I brought to the table.
So the two questions I have are, what was the biggest lesson your mom and dad taught you before their passing?
Yeah.
And then the biggest lesson that each one of them taught you since them passing?
Man. For everything I talk about my mom, and it's always from a perspective of hope. It's always from a perspective of championing somebody. She also could be extremely blunt about people.
Sure.
And even though she understood that everybody's in their own experience, and it might mean that they're not quite ready to be a part of your experience. However, that her language and her ability to say, people suck. People suck. People can really suck sometimes. So I know you want to always open your heart and you want to do A, B, and C, but at the same time, be ready to protect yourself. Be ready to
create a boundary.
Totally. Again, the word that I didn't really quite experience or have in place until maybe the last 12 years of my life, but just my mom's ability to have all this great, authentic love and hope and whimsy, and yet she could, straightforward tell me, it's a brutal world. So as much as all that stuff does exist, there are pockets of, and I'm not saying the exact language my mom would say, but she wasn't afraid to point to me and, protect yourself.
Wow.
Okay. And she also knew that I had a pretty exciting career ahead of me, even early in my life. And so she would say things early when I still felt very insignificant, like people are going to be very jealous of you. People are going to be coming after you because they know that you're sensitive, but at the same time, nobody sparkles like you. And people want that. And I remember talking to her once and realizing, I tell this to a lot of people, when I see the sparkle in somebody, I want to celebrate them. I want to tell you, you're doing something so beautiful and unique and whatever it might be. But I tell them what my mom said, which is, now protect that.
Protect the sparkle.
Of course. Because I think everybody has a time in their life when they can have it. I don't think it's something that just like some people have or just an it factor. I think when you know you're in your lane and you put in the work and you know passion more than anybody else around you, even if they say they support you, and then you're in your moment, and oftentimes I think people snuff themselves out in that moment because either they feel so isolated and alone, or they feel that there's a lot of animosity. When one person breaks away from the, a mediocre group, then you're a target. They talk you up, and then the moment you're out there alone, it's real easy to look at, I wish that was me.
Or he's not as good as he thinks he is, or whatever. Yeah, I know him from when he was this way.
Exactly. So she gave me all that. That was all like stuff that in hindsight I could look at and realize, oh man, she gave me like some seeds that were planted that would help me, before she passed, and then later after. I was like, oh, I just got to go to what my mom told me and just find the right people around me to help bring that out of me so I can really understand it.
So that was before her passing. What was the biggest lesson since she's passed that she's taught you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in love, and I met a woman that I feel like it completely complements each other in a way that was so unusual, I didn't even know if it really existed. I kind of was unsure if that was just some, romanced version of, but for now 5 years and I'm engaged, I finally have that person I feel like is a team with me. I love her family, I'm in love with her. Yeah. As a man, to say like, I'm really in love with you. I never said that. I didn't say anything like that, but I say it because it's everything. It's I wouldn't be where I am without her, and to love this woman and her family and to share all these common things that we want to do together, but to support each other's separate ideas. It's like, Mom, I did it. I finally met that teammate. So that's what she gave to me.
That's beautiful.
Since. I wish you could know her.
Oh man.
But
that's beautiful.
Yeah, man. I feel really fortunate. A little later than I thought. I'm 50. But I was dumb until I was about 38. So I think the timing is probably, now I'm ready for whatever that next step is.
Absolutely. Okay. And your father, biggest lesson he taught you before passing and after?
A lesson that I didn't even know he taught me, which was don't go down that road of dependency to alcohol or addiction. It's a disease. I've spent a lot of time with great friends, mentors in AA. I'll go to AA meetings just because I love it. I love the truth that's happening in that room. Even if it's sometimes caustic or, the
vulnerability
the shame,
is so real.
There's things, yes. And I admire that kind of communication. I really admire. I get goosebumps now, like thinking of a recent, conversation that I was privy to. And grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I heard it in 92 or 3 with a friend of mine at a meeting. I locked it into my heart, and I realized pretty early that, my dad had all these abilities, and yet this liquid, when it got into his body, it brought up a lot of things that I later learned were trauma for him. There was a lot of reasons that he wanted to kind of stifle
and numbing
feelings.
the pain.
Yeah, and I didn't want to numb it, and I had a lot of pain. I felt like I was so broken as a kid, and like I said, self-loathing, and you name it. Like I had every kind of like bad onus I could put on myself. I thought that liquid, when I saw my dad doing it, I thought, man, what if that stuff just accentuates all of that and I can never find happiness? So that was a gift that he didn't even realize he gave to me, which was, don't do this.
But it's funny, as kids, we either kind of mirror our parents and follow in their footsteps, or we see what we don't like and we say, I'm never going to do this thing.
My mom would say to me, after rough nights with my dad, where things could get pretty, sometimes violent or sometimes just, as I look back, it's like we lived on a tilt, and I didn't know that my life was on a skew for years. I just got used to living unbalanced because of alcoholism. It wasn't until I had my own home and I learned what that is to finally be on a solid ground. We learned how to constantly be at that, like in a pivot state.
It's exhausting though.
Oh, totally. My mom would actually sleep. I'd sometimes go into her bedroom. My dad would be, somewhere at a bar or whatever, and she'd have one foot on the floor outside of the comforter. And one time I said, why do you sleep like that? She said, I sleep with 1 foot ready because when your dad gets home, I need to get up quick and figure out what version of him just came home.
Really?
Yeah.
She's sleeping on the bed?
In the bed with 1 foot already out because she wanted to be able to throw that blanket off and get to the door so he wouldn't come in and like maybe, I don't know, he's disruptive or, something that, he doesn't know where the bathroom is and he's in our room or like something that's just like gross or, unprecedented moment of like frustration. He could bring a lot of different things. Sure. And by the way, he could also be the most unbelievably kind, beautiful, believing, passionate person. But this other side from his own misery. So, that was like, my mom saying, be the best of your father. She would say, be the best parts of him, but don't be that part.
Wow. What do you feel like was I've done a lot of healing work on my own kind of childhood traumas. And over the last couple of years, I'll show you my phone. I started a practice where I have a photo of myself on my phone from when I was younger, and I had an even younger version of myself on there.
Yeah.
I was sexually abused when I was a kid by a man that I didn't know, and for 25 years I never told anyone. And I've opened up about it publicly on my show many times. But for 25 years, it was this underlying, unspoken shame, guilt, insecurity, trauma that
in confusion, so much confusion. In
What's
that.
wrong with me, and am I the only one? And
Right.
how do I talk about this? And if anyone knows this, would anyone actually love me? That was the fear.
Right.
What was the biggest,
Or who could hurt me as well?
or who would use this against me?
Exactly. No, that I understand that.
What was the biggest trauma or pain or wound that you later in life had to realize and start mending and healing that gave you that peace? That, again, I felt like I masked certain things as an athlete and being successful in business to project
totally
power and strength and confidence, but inside there was a hurt little boy.
Right.
And it wasn't until I started the healing journey where I started to look myself in the eyes in the mirror and love myself.
Right.
And accept myself and heal that journey and forgive and all those things.
Right.
What was that main wound or trauma that you have been able to heal over the years that have allowed you to have more acceptance and peace of yourself?
Yeah, I remember just one feeling that was so enormous in the house was humiliation. There was a lot of humiliation.
Towards you?
I felt it towards me, but I also felt like there was a feeling just even in the neighborhood. The police are at the Cook house again, and we were really, my mom, similar to me, like, what do people think of us? Her own kind of anxiety about her own kind of like image. She had a lot of insecurity and low self-worth. And so it was almost like this moment would be chaotic in the house and scary. And then, the neighbors hear us yelling, or the neighbors know the police are there, and now everybody's in your business. And I just remember that feeling like that was like the malaise, or like almost like we were used to the alcoholism. We knew the bounce back and we'll be okay and have some Chinese food a couple days later, and elephant in the room, and thank God we're out. But the humiliation that always came with it.
In the neighborhood, the community, the
suffocating.
School,
Yeah, exactly. Who knows in the community, and then how I didn't realize that what my father had allowed through those episodes, how much it would kind of like haunt me. And then even later in my own humiliating moment in life through things that happened with my brother and things that just, even in my career, things that were out of my control, how I immediately went into that same feeling of like, people outside think a certain thing of me, and I have no way of sharing. I'm not those things. What other people think of me is none of my business is a beautiful quote. But it doesn't always work because you're in shambles sometimes when something gets outside of your, the safe haven that you've protected yourself with. So humiliation was a major factor in like probably how I perpetuated certain things or didn't perpetuate certain things.
And when did you start to address that, either with your partner or therapist, and start the healing journey of that?
Yeah, probably in therapy. I got into therapy, got a therapist that was great with the grieving stuff that I needed to learn.
From parents and other things.
Yeah, I didn't know how to grieve. I was
the funny guy. Let's just go back to humor.
The night my dad had passed away, I had been in Vancouver. I was making a film. I flew back to see my dad, who was like, hours away from passing away. And one thing about my dad is he loved business. He loved talking about business.
Strategy.
He was so proud of me when I started really teaching him, this is how I've built my business. He understood. It's not just this is how I know data. I know regions. I know who lives. I'm popular here. I build it out. I do radio tours here. He loved that information.
Cool.
So when I said to him, he's on his deathbed, and I said, Dad, I have a contractual obligation one day that I couldn't get out of. They let me come back to be here now. I got to go, and then I have to come back. And in that time that I left, he had finally passed away.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but I knew. I really understood.
But you had you get to see him, you got to speak with him.
Man, like you know, we won't go there today because, but it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, forgiving, manly, but still boys. The boy in him and the boy in me almost felt like met. He'd had a stroke a few months before. He couldn't communicate in those last weeks. He could only say one word. It's there's a certain stroke that's, forgive me, it's almost like a certain impact that you get where you say one word. He couldn't communicate except to say like school, 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 school. And yet we had the most beautiful conversations.
Really?
Even though we couldn't say everything exactly with the right vernacular, we could communicate in a way that I'd always hoped to have with my father. So when I left that night, I get to LA and my sister Courtney is like, Dad, he's passed away. And I went on stage 2 hours later.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know what else to do.
Right.
And I wasn't in the process of grieving at that. I didn't. No. All I knew was he raised me to win. I'll go win tonight. I'm going to go on stage. And I told the crowd at the midway point of the show, I said, my dad just died.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And of course, one guy was like, like there's always one weird laugh. Yeah. Right. And then I'm like, you're laughing, but I know. And then I talked about my dad. I told some stories that I knew the crowd kind of knew from past. It was funny. And it was me, kind of like an homage to my father. But that was also a night that I went home. I was like, as much as that felt good to do, I'm like, I think there's another way I need to. My mom had already passed. And then, here's my dad. And I'm like, I don't really know how to be sad. I don't really know how to really let that come through me in a real, meaningful, healthy way. I had to learn that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there a time when you finally allowed yourself to open up and crack open emotionally and grieve?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And not turn to humor as the comfort.
Well, grief turns to celebration. I find that when you round that corner and you can finally realize that there may be, not everybody has certainly nobody has a quintessential upbringing. You kind of finally have to realize there's certain things that are things that you may be perpetuating. You need to find even maybe forgiveness or closure yourself, admit things to yourself that maybe you could have done differently or wanted to do.
Right.
And then acknowledging the love. They brought me into this world. These are the gifts they gave me. These are the things that they acknowledged. These are the things that I got to show my parents. And then sitting in with a therapist and not only going through what all of that meant to really, let it all go in one real, I'm the most in touch I'm ever going to be with myself emotionally right at this moment, and hopefully for years to come. But then from that being like, all right, that felt good. Now, what else can I be doing to try to relegate outsiders to stay outside and start building up my own fortress of solitude with true, genuine love for the people who love me, just for me and not for any other reason. I'm going to quit comedy. I want to start over. I want to do that. Who really is there for you? And it's 5 words that are now in my life and in even my routine. And above it all, you'll hear me say this because I love to put a lot of my truth even in comedy.
That's beautiful.
Mindful, thoughtful, compassionate, collaborative, caring. If people around you don't check those boxes, go.
Say it one more time.
Mindful, thoughtful, compassionate, collaborative, caring.
Collaborative. I think a lot of people in business want to be competitive. And it sounds like that was kind of like the scene growing up for you in comedy, where it was not as like, hey, I want to see you succeed and you succeed and let's collaborate together. It was more like, there's not enough fans for everyone, type of mentality.
Oh man, it was like the fatalities in Mortal Kombat. Right. You were just waiting. Somebody wanted to come, and grab that spot. And you don't learn till you're a little bit older. There's plenty of room for everybody on the beam here. We don't all have to knock each other off. But in that era, where I was at that young age and finding self-made success, it was like...
It's competitive.
Just constantly barrage.
I feel like the only way... It's exhausting living that life. I lived that life in sports, and then kind of in my first, 5-6 years of business, it was more subconscious, like competitive. Like, I want to be the best. I want to win. I want to dominate, right?
Yeah. You're just listening to that Karate Kid thing. You're the best. Hooray!
Exactly. But then about 10 years ago, I started realizing okay, I'm accomplishing, I'm making money, I'm having success externally, but internally I wasn't feeling fulfilled.
Right.
And it was right around the time I launched School of Greatness 10 years ago. I was like, I don't want this to be the Lewis Howes show, although there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
was like, I want this to be about something bigger than me. And I want to bring on, brilliant people like yourself who've done incredible things in the world and make it about them and lift others up. And whenever we put the spotlight on someone else in a unique and inspiring way, usually there's a reflection. And so I think when I see, comedians today who are collaborating with their friends and say, we're all going to be on stage and maybe I'm the headliner, but I want to bring you guys with me.
Totally.
I'm
Spotlighting each other.
It's cool to see people lifting each other up in the podcast world, the comedy world, the business world as well. It's really cool. I'm curious, what lessons has fame taught you? Because you kind of were in the fame world when not many big comedians really who are like globally known. Maybe there was a handful, but you got into that spotlight. In LA, the whole scene, what did fame teach you about yourself and about life? And for people that think they want to be well known or have a big audience or have the platform or have the following, what should people know about fame? Were you ready for it? And how do you wish you would have been more prepared for the spotlight?
This is like 2-hour part 2. Oh man, let me boil it down to some of the, I guess, fundamentals. First thing about fame is at first it's a blast, right? Because it just facilitates every empty pocket void. Every no that you've ever thought like, oh, they wouldn't let me be a part of that club or, I'd be on the team.
From girls.
Man, every girl, all the girls. I told you I'd be somebody. Like be lying if you didn't say like the dopamine hit of fame at first. And then very quickly, almost immediately, you get a little bit of a window of opportunity where it's like really just about like, it's very flowery. It's part of like the talk up, right? And then you have to understand that the whole thing is contingent on a narrative that has nothing to do with you. And there's going to be a version of you that's here. And then let's use the internet as like that's a show. That's a show that you participate in by posting and stuff as well. But there's a narrative that takes place, sometimes several. There's a few versions of Dane Cook. There's a few versions of, you name a person, there's hybrid versions, and depending on what kind of person you are, you follow that narrative. There's a narrative of me in People magazine that's very like homegrown and likes to just proposing on the side, and people, that's the love narrative, and people want everything about you. It's almost overwhelming amount of what they believe your life is in that version. Then there's another version that's very salacious. There's a version of your narrative that's been pretty much hijacked, is the way I refer to it. I've had my narrative hijacked to where a story goes, somebody says something, everybody goes, we want that to be true. He's a bad guy. And then they'll talk that up to the point where it feels like a real person. It just takes one person to say it too. That's the thing, is I sometimes feel like the internet, like everybody's like, somebody just say it. Somebody just say that one thing based on that meme or somebody, and we'll all just take it and then
amplify it.
And you got to sit back and realize it's never going away. It's always going to be a version of a conversation where people are going to be, one time I heard about a thing with it, and it's imperative to do two things. I'll keep it on the list of two since we don't do ones and threes here. The two things is to always be able to share your narrative, share your truth, even if it's not always easy to do. If you can in real time be letting people know, these are the overwhelming things I deal with, or the things through my, a great marriage that I'm in, or something I'm learning from my kids. Whatever you can do to truly always keep your narrative front and center, that's important. And also, the greatest thing I've learned in the last 12 years is anything that you garner, give it to somebody else who needs that support or love.
What do you mean?
That's the whole thing. That means that I identify myself, right? I jokingly, I'm the old bull. I got some wisdom now. But truthfully, all I want to do is take any of that energy and, even if it's impulsive or if it's a version of an idea that's kind of like my ragtag, I just want to find people and be able to share some form of knowledge with them. It's not, early fame is, I got it. It's about me. I did it. I'm here. And then you go a little further along and say, man, it feels so much better to help somebody else cultivate their dream, to be a part of what you now know as a famous person. This is a show. This is hard. And it's a lot of people that are there for the wrong reasons. And if you can be one of the people that says, I don't need anything from you, I don't want anything from you, but I would like to share something with you. And where that is for me, where a lot of that lives is this kind of sentiment statement that I came up with a few years ago. When you're at your rock bottom, and I've been to a few rock bottoms, but when you're really there, don't be so quick to try to come up for air.
Really?
Don't try to, like, in a almost panicked way, escape it. Take a beat and acknowledge what's happening around you.
And evaluate.
Yeah. Understand the level of brokenheartedness you feel, or whatever got you to that point. Really take a second to let it all in. The same way you want to let the biggest laugh out when you're laughing, take a minute when you're at rock bottom, look around, because I promise you, I absolutely guarantee, which is not something that you would really put on anything, you will come up with more data that leads to your success. It's all at that bottom.
Really?
Everything is at that bottom. I would even go so far as to say you needed to see that bottom.
Really?
The hurdles I talked about earlier, the obstacles, all those things I realized in life, like, they start to dissipate once you see that they really don't have any power. The power is I put them there to put a limit on myself. And why do I put a limit on myself? Because I'm truly scared. And if I only go this far, then that makes me go, I'm okay because I went this far. Why don't I want to think further? Why can't I be of value to you, to strangers? So hitting that rock bottom moment for me, and I, like I said, I hit a couple that were like really like undertow moments. I could learn to look around and go, I'm coming up from this. When I finally like take that big breath of air, I'm going to come with more data in my own personal analytics, and I'm going to use these things in a way that nobody else would think to use them, which is to further myself as a better contributing member to my community.
Wow. Okay, so if you could go back to the version of you before really things started to take off.
Yeah.
Before you got famous
change
and
it.
known, what would you tell yourself though to be ready for it?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's like I'm so complete in some ways, and not. And by the way, not fully. I definitely still like. I like to recalibrate.
Yeah.
And that means I took it apart. Now I don't even know if I know how to do this a different way or whatever. So I understand that feeling of being like back behind the eight ball in some way, shape, or form. But if I could go back, I guess the one thing you kind of want to like whisper, like, you come up in a hoodie, is just something that my mom used to always try to remind me, which is be your best friend. Be your best friend.
To yourself.
To you. Because I was not. I actually didn't like, my mom would say that, rubbing my back, helping me to come down from it. You have to be your friend, be your own friend. And I thought it was so weird. And I didn't like it for so many years. Mom, I want friends. I want someone else to make me feel good. And it took so long to finally realize when you can look at yourself in the mirror and really enjoy your own company, your high water marks, which you need to celebrate, and even the rock bottom moments that you came back from with better data and a better version of yourself moving forward. That's the place that you want to be. So I would tell that to myself. Just be your own friend and breathe.
How many people who have fame, again, I'm not calling out names or anything, but just in your own opinion, how many
Let's
people...
call out names. This next segment is names.
Exactly. How many people do you think who have developed some type of fame truly are their own best friend and love themselves, or are more putting on a mask to try to protect their fears and insecurities?
I know a lot of different kinds of fame. I know people that are famous and they're very good at it, and they're very good at the facade, and that's their storefront window. It's for whatever their pomp and circumstance, and fame comes in so many different elements. Some people are filling a void. Some people are truly like running away from something completely. Other people want that because with more fame, there's more power, and that means controlling people. So, every version of fame, I feel like I've broken bread with at some point or another. Yeah. But I also know that I've had the experience of working alongside of people that are genuinely some of the most fascinating, inspiring, creative people. Kevin Costner is an example of, I worked with Kevin 15 years ago on a film called Mr. Brooks. He trusted me to play a dramatic role, even though I was a kid that people knew just from comedy. I was being pigeonholed pretty quick,
Sure.
and did not want that. And he believed in me, and he gave me this shot. And I mean, forget about Dances with Wolves, forget about The Untouchables, forget about but then it was like learning about all the charity work that he was doing, and learning about like the crew and the people around him that like want so desperately to be a part of that next idea, and just how he handled himself and treated his crew. It made me go, like, I want to be a better version of myself based on what this gentleman is sharing with me. And by the way, very funny. Just could be quick with humor in a stressful moment. And I feel like people like him, and I've been fortunate to be surrounded with people that are really like the best version of fame. The magnifying to where it magnifies their creativity, but it magnifies their generosity.
That's what people say about money. The more money you have just magnifies who you are.
Yeah.
It expresses who you are more to people. If you're a generous and kind person before you have money, you'll be more generous and kind.
Very true.
If you're narcissistic and angry and scared, you're going to be more of those things with money.
A lot
Probably
of that
the same
is,
thing with fame, right?
A lot of that, especially like early fame. You are now part of this somewhat considered elite inner circle that once you're in, there's really nobody else in that circle that truly is like, here's how we do things here.
Who understands it?
It's completely discombobulated. And like I said, there's no playbook for it. And there's also no real way to protect yourself from some of the stabs and some of the takes. And so you have to almost go, with whatever gets taken, I don't want to delve too deep into this today.
Yes.
But I put my brother in prison because we're actually doing a documentary about that era of my life. And he went to jail for stealing from me. He worked with me. He helped me, pay my bills.
Yes.
He was taking an exorbitant amount of money, and he ended up going to prison. And the one thing I did say in the courtroom when I read an impact letter, it's called a victim impact letter, I said, the thing you forgot was, forget about how competitive I am with me. I'm not competitive I'm really not, unless we're on Warzone or maybe golf.
Right.
I'm a competitive person with me. I set a thing for myself and I want to exceed that expectation. And he knew that. And I said, you forgot that these things light my fire. And you lit a forest fire. And I said, but what you really forgot, and I read this in the letter, I said, you forgot that you could take anything you want from me. And maybe people will again, but you'll never take what's in here.
Wow.
That's the most valuable currency I have, and nobody's getting that.
Wow.
Unless watch on the way home, somebody will knock me out. I'm in a van, and then somebody takes my brain.
Oh, no, man.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
No, but it was a powerful moment to be able to say that to him and acknowledge and pretty quickly understand I'm going to be okay.
Right.
I'm very different from what he did to me, but I'm also, it's forming who I'm meant to be, which is a person that you want to have in your life, because I don't want anything from anybody except for you to see value in you. And then that's the high I get, is being like, yes, I knew we all saw that in you. And when you triumphed, I get to sit somewhere, eating my popcorn, being like, I saw the sparkle in that person. My mom would be very proud that I seeked that person out and said, I hope that you're getting a lot of people saying, don't stop, because you're good. You're good, kid.
That's beautiful, man. How did you learn, or have you forgiven the people in your life, whether it be your brother or others who have hurt you or taken from you or backstabbed you or lied to you,
Still
manipulated you? Have you been able to forgive all these people?
Not all, but I definitely have. I've had a lot of hard conversations, as I call it. You got to have hard conversations in life.
Which is the first step, at least.
First step. I mean, sitting almost similar to what you want to do is take a table. You want to sit knee to knee with another human being, and you want to open up and you want to say,
open body.
Can we have a hard conversation?
Wow.
And you allow it. Okay. And then the best thing you can do is fall on the sword and talk about yourself first and what you think that you may have done. Maybe that was a disservice, or you got to acknowledge first. Nobody wants to hear you. Like a point and a you is like a quick way to somebody needs a bathroom break and then they're driving away at 80
This is the thing I take responsibility for and how I could have been
The reason
better.
I want to speak to you today is because I don't like how I feel when I think of us. It hurts me to know that we've hurt each other. And if you can find a way to ingratiate yourself and
we, not you, did this to me.
Yeah. And by the way, maybe it isn't. I've had hard conversations where it wasn't necessarily something I did, but I still have to you still want to be able to say like, you know, your version, your way of life. In searching my feelings, when I think of you or us, it pings me in a way that like I want to understand. And will you help me to understand? And so from having those hard conversations, it has, man, it's like it's so much further than the simplicity of the answer, but it's allowed me to always acknowledge that I'm a flawed person. I can take responsibility and accountability, but I can also sit with you and acknowledge in a healthy way that if there was a moment where I had the baton and I was in front, I'm gonna celebrate an accomplishment as well. And I want people around me to know you can celebrate your accomplishment with me. This world we've created where everything has to be somewhat like, you know, everybody's at some kind of maintained decorum. I don't know. If you have your moment, it's like you should be up front. You should be touted. How many of them do you get in life? So I say, you know, you don't play those moments down. You have hard conversations with people and you say like, I want to be able to celebrate my victories with you, through you, but I also want you to be able to come to me and know like, I'm the real deal.
Absolutely.
I'm a straight shooter, and whether it's a big win or like you fell on your face, I'm going to be the first person to be like, this is what I saw from my 2 cents. Those are the people you want in your life, man.
You're a deep dude, man.
I try, man. I love it. We got one ticket on this ride.
I love it.
You know, one ticket. And the energy we create, I do believe that whatever you believe after, it's like, I think we take it with us.
Absolutely.
You know, so I'm just trying to entertain people. You know, the new show is about celebrating like 30 years of stand-up comedy. To do something aesthetically beautiful. It's a beautiful special with an incredible legendary director, Marty Kullner. And to really show people, I'm standing on my porch. This is the most transparent, vulnerable version and place you could be.
Yes.
This is my home. You're really in my home. But this is the shit that I worked my ass off on for years. It's ready to go for public consumption, but I've mixed in something that I've always wanted to have, which I can now say is introspection.
Right. And I'm going to keep asking you questions, but you've got this.
Oh, wait, so now you got this. Oh, wait a second. Hold on. The notebook just had a couple of clip notes.
Well, I want to make sure I get it right.
A.
I want to make sure I get it right. I was seeing the bio up there before.
Okay.
I haven't even looked at it once, but I want to make sure, because I want to keep asking you some questions I think are going to be really powerful.
Above It All.
But Above It All is out October 4th.
It's pre-order now, but then officially through DaneCook.com. It's like, it's accessible to everybody, which I love.
It's exciting. So we'll go to DaneCook.com, pre-order it now, or if you're listening after, go get it and watch it.
Yeah.
Curious about forgiveness, because we touched on this for a second. Is there a moment, person, or thing that you have yet to fully forgive in your life? Yeah,
in those hard conversations, sometimes you actually have to come to terms that like, listen, we're not ready. It's not just like,
right.
But this is a start. So there's been hard conversations that we agree to disagree, but that's okay. Some of the best friendships I have are from things that I thought were depleted, but we revisited. And then there's a new respect that gets formed sometimes of being like, man, we aired it out. We said some not so nice things.
But at least we shared our truth.
Yeah, but we both have maybe our fathers have passed away. Mm-hmm. And even though we agree on next to nothing, we can both agree that we love our dads and we want to be good kids for them for the rest of our life. Now, if we can't start from there and do something together,
or maybe it doesn't mean you're going to be partners on every business moving forward or close friends, but at least you can resolve some of the past pain or hurts and say, I accept you from a distance and I wish you the best.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean we're forging a path together, but it means, oh man, I know that if we do bump into each other in some way, shape, or form, that there is a respect there because we both understand like a very simple human thing that we both have gone through that pain together.
Do you feel like you've been able to forgive yourself fully for just everything in life?
It's been a lot. It's been work. Yeah, there was times in my life where I felt like, I lost my way. Definitely during like coming to, be successful. Definitely lost my way, and probably in my own failures had tried to create a version of myself that like I thought pleased people. And so I didn't always treat my relationships with care. And I think that part of that too is just feeling maybe that selfish moment of like the hubris of like, it's about me right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what I realized then was, oh man, it's not necessarily just about the women that I was with, it was the women that I was with were affiliated with alcoholism, and I knew the love of alcoholism, okay? The love of alcoholism for me from my dad was there's chaos, and then there's calm, and really great I'm sorries and love. And so...
And then you repeat the cycle.
Yeah.
So so you weren't using alcohol, but you were using, or not using, but you were experiencing this with women as like it was alcohol.
Yeah, yeah. And like, obviously, like these relationships aren't going to be fulfilling because at the core of them, there's a pain. There's a bit of a pain.
Wound,
There's loss involved in this. And so probably where I have the most, because of that, I would sometimes be like, well, if I'm with a person who's going to cause me this pain, then I don't care if I cause them pain. And so it kind of lets you off the hook to say, oh, this is kind of par for the course. We're both not being great to and for each other. And I had to realize, wholeheartedly that was,
right.
That was me creating an ability for myself to get away with more of what I wanted for me. And, that was going to be a very lonely road going further if I continued to pull those kinds of people close.
How did you learn to break that cycle? And now you're engaged, and it sounds like you have an amazing relationship, and you have this deep connection. But
one friend with one great line of advice. A good friend of mine, Paul, sat down with me, and he just said one time, I said, man, this relationship and this, and then, like I'm half in and half out of it, and I just don't like how it makes me feel. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like that's like my personal constitution, and yet I'm living this way with and he said, easily, he said, it's because you know the love of alcoholism. That's the love that you think you deserve is that. And I was like a speechless moment when I rarely get, I just sat there we were in my living room, and I was like, I need to change this. I need to change the people that I'm surrounding myself with, and the women that I'm meeting. I need to meet somebody who's very different, very healthy, and something that I was maybe afraid to have, which was somebody that really was all the things that I'm being honest with you about, call me on my,
right.
Let's have we're equal. I'm not better because of what I do. That's all hullabaloo. That's just stuff to bolster you up. I wanted somebody who just was very human and loving, mindful, thoughtful, compassionate, collaborative, and caring. And I wanted somebody who I could sit with and just feel like the value is just the love that's here.
Not the fame or the success or money or what's happening.
No, because that by that point has come and gone so many times. I've had more, I don't know if it's an ebb or a flow or it's finicky, a career. It's so much, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you put your creativity into and how you feel in the moment creating it matters so much more than the zeitgeist. Even though
being in the culture and selling out the arenas.
No. It would be terrible to say to you that's what I aspire to. A single destination of an arena or I want to play beautiful places in the world. I love that my comedy can do that. But what's more important is me going all right, how can I collaborate and help some of the people around me that are like, man, I have an idea for something that I'm excited. And I'm like, that's where I get really the most kick.
The creative juice is the energy, the strategy of it.
New beginning. Out of the gate people, I love them. I want to champion those kinds of people.
So how did you, when you met your fiance, from that one conversation with, I think Paul is his name? Paul.
Yeah.
From that moment till when did you meet your fiance?
Yeah.
And what did you have to overcome, the fears or insecurities that was really, it sounds like keeping you from true intimacy and allowing people to see you fully is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And you to be received by someone with all your flaws.
I was ready to be my full, complete self, everything that I am, what I bring to the table. I was already before Kelsey doing that. I was doing that with every kind of relationship. An assertiveness unlike anything that I'd ever allowed myself to be before. Probably, I'm sure in some people's eyes, too assertive.
Right.
But it's I don't let one bit of false, even if I said I don't let one bit of false, I'm the first person to be I up. You know what? The truth is, I actually do. Being just present, staying present. Sure. So when I met her, it was kind of strange because I used to host I'd never had a Friday night off in my entire career. I'd never had a Friday or a Saturday night off for 24 years.
Machine.
Never. And I finally had a Friday night off that at first I was really like, wow, this is gonna, what do I do? So I decided, you know what I've always wanted to do? I've always wanted to have like a game night where I can invite creative people to just not do the traditional Hollywood, whatever that is, but like something real East Coast and simple. Like my porch is open, sit out by the fire pit, we're gonna play Codenames or Mafia or like running charades, and like real easy. In fact, of the 30 or 40 people that would show up each week, there was barely anybody would drink. There wasn't any, and we all stayed in this like one little living room.
Cool.
We're all like living room kitchen leaners, you know what I mean? Like that's how we grew up. And so I met Kelsey when I started hosting the game night. And she came with some other people, brought her one. I didn't know her, but she came with some other friends. And we had people like, it was a fascinating, it was kind of like one of the things that you would write about in like a book of Hollywood of like the amount of creative, interesting people that were out. Everybody from every walk of life.
Yeah.
Just people that wanted to be around a nice, easy evening. Maybe a little bit of shop talk, but like truly like
not have to be on.
We're geeks, we're Star Wars fans, we all love Game of Thrones. Like it was just like, yeah, but some of the best of the best. I mean, I won't drop names, but people there were like, man, like I can't believe I'm now friends with so-and-so. It opened up my world in a way. I'm like, man, this Friday night thing that I've been for years just never acknowledging I can have this night, a Friday night to myself. So anyway, I meet Kelsey and she's there for a while. And then it was strange. One night we were all going to go to karaoke. Instead of the game night, a bunch of us are going to go do karaoke. And I was like, I'll pick up a few people. I picked up Kelsey and I was going to pick up 2 or 3 other people. And halfway there, the guy that put it together was like, we can't do it. The babysitter, and the whole thing fell apart. So I already had Kelsey. I said, do you want to go get something to eat? We asked the other people. They were like, we're going to skip it. And over 2 hours, I sat and I realized like, man, like this is one of the most, there's a lot of ways I want to describe it. It's special, just a very special human being. And we had a lot of similarities, even though there's a pretty good age gap. But we had so many things like that we kind of both came from. I can't speak for her right now, but like we just had a lot of things that were like, we didn't stop talking, and we were more and more realizing that like we had maybe like something stronger than a friendship, even though the jokes were flowing because I'm like, I'm so much older. This, you're going to change, and I am who I am. And I kind of didn't, I don't want to say I like poo-pooed all over it, but the joke was like, this would never, ever work. And then after about 6 months, actually fewer than that, I was like, I really would like to meet your parents so they know I'm a good person. Because I understand this, even to this day, people want to say stuff about our age difference and,
What's the gap, the age?
Kelsey's 23, I'm 50. Sure. But at that point, we're dating, she's like 19 and I'm 40,
Right.
So understandably, like we were, being talked about. The narrative was becoming something that, was not always nice.
Right.
Sometimes painful, not desirable. But anyway, I wanted to get to know her parents and getting to know her mom, getting to know her dad, and then realizing like, I love this family. And I'd never had the love of a family in a relationship like that either, where it was like, and not only that, but like the generosity and the genuineness and the things that I was realizing through this relationship were more important than anything career-wise we were already building on. So I said, this is going to be cheesy, man, but
Bring it,
I said when I sat here, I was going to like, I wasn't going to, I told a friend of mine, maybe Paul, that I said, we were about, a year and a half in, and I said, I don't know if this is going to, like, I'm a young 50, I'm heading, like, I'm 20 old, I'm energetic, I'm like, love of the game lives in me all the time. I just, I'm effervescent. And I said, if it only goes 2 years, I'm going to give this woman all my love that I could possibly give to somebody in the most real, stark, absolute way for 2 reasons. So I'll always know I did that. And that for the rest of her life, maybe she'll know somebody really loved her. A man, especially in this town, the way this town operates. Then it's 2 years. Then it's 3 years. And I'm like, if it goes 3 years, I'm just going to give that same love. So when I know that, like, if it ends, and I kind of was like, I guess it's going to end.
Someday? Yeah.
But I was like, but we're never not talking and enjoying and building and creating. We talk about music and politics and art, and there's never a dull moment. So go 3 years. And I'm putting this into it. And now that at 5 years, I'm like, this is love of my life. Wow. And I'm saying to her, are you sure you want to
be with me?
Yeah. It's like, and I make the jokes are sometimes they're very dark, man. Like Kelsey and I have a great sense of humor, and like the joke is, I would say like, gee, I want to start a family too late. I'm going to be saying goodbye on my deathbed to my, we joke and we get it.
Sure.
But also when we hit that 5 year point, it was like, we don't want anything or anybody else. And it was very apparent by her, the things that she wanted aligned with the things that I was hoping. And here we are.
Wow, man.
Yeah, man, it was a gift. I feel like it's like a gift from the universe. And it was kind of funny to be with somebody too. She didn't really know about the success and she knew she got it.
She wasn't born yet.
She was like, no, it's like we joke. It's in my act.
I know.
There's a whole routine in the act about Kelsey and I. So I hope people see that we can have fun with
it's fun
with it as well. But the
that's great, man.
The center point of the whole thing is it's two people that really
that's beautiful,
just
man.
care so much about each other.
What's the thing you love about Kelsey the most?
Just her heart.
Yeah.
The way she communicates about how she feels about things. It's all this, man. It's all this same kind of. We talk about it. We say we've always had just such everything is so real. Everything. There's no hidden agendas. There's no the things that we both talk about that we want. It's like it's no frills. It's the most authentic kind of relationship that you'd want with anybody.
That's beautiful.
And so it's man. It's the best thing that's happened to me.
I appreciate you opening up and taking the time because I think it's really inspiring to hear your journey and your story. And I don't think everyone's heard you speak in this way consistently, the way you've been opening up. So I really appreciate that.
Oh man, I appreciate it.
It's fun, man.
Great chat.
This is fun, man. I want to ask a little bit about business and strategy and kind of like the business.
I love it.
Which is a whole 4-hour conversation.
Wait, 15 minutes.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
If we get good ratings on this thing, we might have to come back.
Let's come back, exactly.
I'll wear a nicer shirt.
Or maybe if you're still doing Friday nights, maybe I'll come over there and hear some.
Play some Mafia. Oh,
exactly.
Man. It's a blast.
I'm curious, you were like early in the wave of, you were like leading the way. You're one of the giants that people are standing on the shoulders of now, right? It's like you've created something that people are trying to innovate with social media now and do their own specials. And Andrew Schwartz, we're talking about this. We're doing their own stuff.
Yeah,
Schultz talking about this. All these other guys are coming up and they're just really taking that and innovating it, right?
Yeah.
Where do you see this going now? Being kind of like, you were calling it what, old guard or something, or old dog in this world, but you're
I'm old bull.
Old bull, sorry, old bull.
Yeah.
But you still got decades of creation and innovation. But where do you see it from where you've been, 10, 15, 20 years ago, where the world is now with streaming opportunities to get specials, but now people are saying, I want to be able to not censor myself and just do it on my own.
Right.
And I can make more money on my own potentially. And where do you see it heading over the next 3 to 5 years? Seeing that, it almost seems like every year things are changing.
Very much so.
With streamers, network, touring, specials, digital, YouTube, TikTok. Like, what is now? What do you see is happening in the future for comedians?
Yeah, I think,
and artists in general.
I think anybody who's in any version of self-made creativity or innovation or even invention, it all comes down to protecting yourself with paperwork. I know it's like
really
a little it's a little
super
bit of
sexy.
It's a little bit of like a more maudlin type of answer, but the truth is I learned after so many years that if you have a great deal with somebody who truly has like a stake, skin in the game, right? They want to benefit with you for whatever those reasons are, right? A, B, and C. Then that's a deal worth making and taking. But for the most part, it's just about people collecting and sometimes in a half-hearted way, sharing your content in a way that you don't want it to be received, right? Because as a performer, this is how the show went. And so now that I've filmed it, I want it to be, shown in that same kind of light. Mm-hmm. And so I think where these things, and somebody like Andrew Schultz or CK doing it through his website for some years, or I used to do things on like sites that would provide like, for $3 you can you can come in PayPal, watch my show. I would set these like, fly by night, evenings up. And all of that leads to where above it all is now, which is I own the IP. Okay, so I paid for this. This special came out of my pocket. I was fortunate enough to get with the greatest comedy director, Marty Kullner.
That's beautiful.
And put up my, fronted the money and figured out a way to make this thing that not only was beautiful and I think aesthetically unique from a lot of the
a visual perspective,
cheaper things that sometimes a great comic gets with a stream or a network and then they don't want to pay anything. They'll give you a little cash for your act and then they'll put even less into the set. And a set is theme, a set is tone. A great editor is going to accentuate the things. If they just throw Johnny the editor who does all the edits, like you're going to look like her special and his special. All these things matter. All those things are in paperwork. Edit, who we're going to hire. I want to write refusal. I want to blah, blah, blah. So understanding legalese, but also being able to create something and then say, where do I want this to live? And then how do I get paid back in success for it? With this special, with Moment, who's the presenter of my show, it's a contract that's like a page. And it basically says, we're going to facilitate, almost like what pay-per-view used to be, maybe more so. You don't need to subscribe to a year for a streamer. You don't have to pay for something that you don't want. You just want to see this show. You can go right to my site or to Moment, click on it, you can get merch, you can be part of the after party, and then that's it. That's the rapport and the relationship that I would have at a club, a theater, an arena, and now online. And what that does is it presents me with the opportunity to see where my IP goes, to see where the show goes, and to be able to collect on that in success, and to not get screwed over. And this is how people are getting screwed over. Ready? Here we go. We're getting screwed over because you sign a contract in 2018, and the jargon in there refers to streaming. Well, 2 years later, streaming is called downloading, or vice versa. And so now the language doesn't quite protect you because some of your stuff is still considered streaming and some of it. And then, man, there's a new thing now, 2 years, called hyper streaming.
Right.
Now, that person who owns your IP in partnership with you, which, by the way, they don't allow you to look at the books, they don't allow you to look at the numbers.
Right, it's not
That's
a
not much
partnership.
of a partnership. Then they take and they're putting in hyper streaming, but you're still getting your kickback from streaming or downloading. You will get lost in the shuffle. Somebody called me recently and said, I have a 30-page contract. I said, stop. I said, 30 pages is too much for this thing that you're talking about at your level. That should be a 3-page contract. You should be able to sit there and read that.
And understand it.
And no, perpetuity is a bad word. And then there's some other things that you're going to want to change in there. Where we are right now, with the success of Schultz, with the success of some of these other independent artists, I know even like Bieber went through the Moment route. Scooter Braun is one of the investors.
Scooter's a buddy of mine,
Halsey, amazing entrepreneurial guy, and wish I could meet him to thank him firsthand because
Oh, you never met him? He's incredible.
I don't know him. No, I don't know him. But now I'm working.
You play basketball?
I do.
Come out and play basketball with us sometime.
I'm not going to say no to that.
I'll bring you out sometime when I'm playing with you.
I may have to wear a knee brace on the left, but okay, I bang underneath too. But it's really like Scooter and those guys in Moment, Bart Coleman and everybody, great group of people over there. And what they're providing is the opportunity to say, not only here's your show that you own and operate, we want to put you in the best light, but when you leave that experience, they give you all the analytics. Nobody bogarts your emails, or you get the email list. You get all the numbers, you get the regions, you have all the data you'd want if you were a comic like I was in 96. You'd pick up that piece of paper where somebody would fill out the comment card, say, we had a good time, we're from so-and-so, and you go, now I have an email or a phone number. Data is the currency.
You own the data, not the streamer or the network or whatever, right?
I'll be able to pay I'm going to recoup, hopefully very quickly, with my investment, and now I have something that looks completely unique, beautiful piece of art with great Marty Kullner, and the best part is, maybe a streamer or somebody calls and says, now we want it. And then you can go, okay, let's shrink that deal down. And hopefully what we're going to see in the next couple of years, to answer more directly, is less about these long-term, and you're chasing royalties and mechanical royalties and all this. It's like mumbo jumbo to say, can we put it on our streamer for 6 months? Why is that better? Because they've got 6 months, they're on the clock. You want to sell it? Sell it, promote it for me. Where's the billboards for most of these things? I have friends that are huge comedians. Nobody's even knowing their special's out. It's on a splash page.
It's not even available. You have to look for it, search for it. Yeah.
Yeah, special should be special. Right. Special should, and
give it a moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
so
your moment.
We've created something that I know. I mean, listen, Marty Kullner, I know what I bring to the table. That man is such a brilliant director that when I looked at the cut, I said, Marty, this is the best I've ever been. And it's because I know you knew how to capture my version of storytelling.
I mean, you've had some great stuff. This is the best you've ever been.
This is the best.
Wow.
This is it. Because of that, I had some tools in the arsenal in 05, 6, 7, and then I learned things. I was like, oh man, if I can implement that into the routine. So now I've got an act that I think covers a lot of bases.
That's exciting. And when you do stand up for 30 years or whatever you've been doing it for, you've just figured out what works consistently.
Yeah. You start to understand that that people love not only the musicality that you bring to whatever your tempo and your style, I guess, but people talking about what we spoke to earlier was people just love the truth. Yes. And if you can share truth, observe and report, or personal truth, then you've got, for the most part, a fan for life. They want to check in and go, what's next?
I'm excited to watch this.
I'm going to send you a link. You don't even need it. Okay, I got 10 giveaway links that I'm going to.
Are you doing a watch party here or no?
What's that?
You doing a watch party here in LA or no?
We're doing a big premiere at the TCL Chinese Theater, the historic Chinese Theater. That's the night before.
On the 3rd, okay.
First comic to, on the 4th.
On the
first comic to ever do a screening in Theater One, the big famous Star Wars theater.
Ooh, that's cool.
And again, man, it's so exciting. It really is.
I want people to follow you. You're at Dane Cook everywhere. You're also DaneCook.com. They can go and get the special there or through The Moment. I guess is it moment.com?
Yeah, it's moment.co. But if they go to DaneCook.com,
it'll take them right there.
Swing you around.
So go to DaneCook.com. I'm excited to watch this. I want people to watch it. I think it's going to be really powerful. If you're saying it's your best stuff, I mean, that's putting it out there. I'm excited.
That's in the eyes and the ears of your audience, but at the same time, I've been in the edit bay and we had a screening and I liked what I heard.
I'm excited, man. I'm very excited about this.
Appreciate that.
I've got 2 final questions for you. I want to make sure people get this. Follow you on social media. What's your social media platform of choice?
I like TikTok. Yeah, it's like MySpace 2.0.
Yes.
I feel like it's really vibrant. I feel like the people that are on there are really genuinely creative and excited to be a part of that platform. So that's where I kind of do most of my lives and stuff.
This question is called the 3 truths question.
Okay.
So it's a hypothetical question.
Oh boy.
Imagine it's your last day on earth. You get to live as long as you want to live.
Okay.
You get to have the exact career, the relationship, the family that you desire, you envision. It all comes true.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, this is the last day for you.
Okay.
Many years away.
All right.
And all of your content.
I feel like I'm about to audition for a film. Your character is Matt. He owns the rocket ship.
Yes. The world is ending. No, I'm just kidding. But in this hypothetical scenario, all of your content is gone. It goes with you to the next place. So we don't have access to this interview, anything you've ever written down, social media, comedy specials. We don't have access to your message. But for whatever reason, you get to leave behind 3 lessons to the world. From everything that you've experienced in life. It can be any topic, anything. Yeah. And this is all the content we have to remember you by.
Okay.
What would those 3 truths be for you that you would share behind?
Yeah. Well, okay, so maybe unexpectedly, but I always have to have a little humor and a little, something cutting with a little humor. It's a quote that I heard years ago, and I love it. Some people brighten a room by leaving it. And I never forget that. So you don't want to be that person. Mm-hmm. Some people brighten a room by leaving it.
That's good.
I think the second thing, the second bit of information would be anything that I ever do. One time Mel Brooks, the great Mel Brooks, called me up. And it was to be in The Producers at the Hollywood Bowl. And he wanted me to come in and play Franz in this very famous role. And I was so nervous talking to Mel Brooks that I pulled over on the side of the road. And he was like, can you do the accent? I don't care if you can sing. He wanted to know if I could do this funny German accent. He wanted me to do it on the phone. And I didn't want to do it on the phone because what if I mess it up here? I just didn't want. And so I said to him, Mel, I'm not going to do it. I couldn't believe I was saying no. I said, I want to do this, but I can't do it on the phone. But I will tell you this. I would not say yes to this if I didn't feel I could exceed yours and my expectations. So exceed your expectations. Whatever you expect of yourself, push it a little bit further, learn a little bit more, and have a little more heart and guts, and see what that does. And the last thing I would say, and it's comparable to that, is something I just told myself when I was very young. Kind of almost like a little bit of a soothsaying moment where I saw the future. Look before you leap, but don't spend your life looking too much, or it's all looking and no leaping.
I love that, man. Got a lot of wisdom here. I like
Try,
this.
man. Hey, and try to share it all.
Before I ask the final question,
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge you for a moment, Dane, for everything you've created and everything you've overcome. Again, I think, I wasn't really into comedy necessarily when I was, when you were coming up, but I think you brought comedy into my life to make me aware of it. Hearing your comedy, it was like shared around college campuses and stuff. And I was like, it got me interested in comedy. And you being an innovator was really inspiring to watch. And to see you innovate, even from a place where you weren't where you were struggling and maybe emotionally wounded or dealing with family challenges, and keep innovating and keep showing up, and then continue to do the healing journey. I think that's really cool, because some people will just crash and burn and they never work on themselves.
Right.
But for you to do what is your truth, to work on that healing journey in all your relationships and things like that. I know you're not perfect, I'm not either, but to be on that journey and keep showing up is really inspiring. So I want to acknowledge you for that, man. It's really cool.
Thank you so much.
And I can't wait to dominate in the paint against you in a basketball game one day. My final question is, what is your definition of greatness?
I think that it comes down to, regardless of the outcome of what you even think or know of what you put into that piece, presenting it and standing by it. Because the very fact that it maybe isn't perfect is exactly why it's perfect.
Dane Cook,
Dude,
man.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Really appreciate you, dude. Thank
Powerful,
you.
man.
All right.
The most important lessons that I've learned in my life have come from doing and mentors. And so on a day-to-day basis, it's reducing the time between when you wake up and when you begin working, right? A lot of people lollygag and delay and procrastinate and things like that. And if you just think about, there's only a certain amount of time in the day, I want to increase my output per unit of time as much as possible.